Hello and welcome along to part 2 of this FM21 experiment from Wales with me, Daniel. We're back, as has been much requested, a further 10 years in the future in our Welsh experiment, where we've given all of the top 20 clubs in the country a little bit of a financial boost. Nothing unrealistic, and it's proportionate to their reputation and to the size of the club at the start of the game. We've tried to give them a boost. We've seen which areas of the game they're going to develop in first and where they're going to spend their money and whether they can look after their club's future as well. So we're back at the end of May 2040 to have a look at what the second 10 years has done for Welsh football. But firstly, if you did miss the first episode where we set up the experiment and went through the first 10 years, please do click in the eye above to catch up with that. What we'll do in today's episode is pick up from that exact point in the summer of 2030. And we'll look at a couple of new things in addition to the ones we were looking at before. So we'll continue to have a look at some of the star clubs and see what they've done with their facilities, with their money that they've been using throughout the save. We'll have a look at all the usual stuff, the league table, the European coefficient, the transfers of course, and who's been winning all the competitions. But we'll also have a look at how them new stadiums have panned out for certain teams. Have we got anyone who's got a big average attendance? Are the Welsh national team getting any players from our league, and are they benefiting overall? All of those things we're yet to find out. So if you're looking forward to it, please do chuck a thumbs up on the video. It shouldn't be quite as long as the first one because we've not got the big setup too. But I tell you what, the holidaying isn't as quick the second 10 years, is it? Took a long time to get here, but we are back and we're going to go and have a look at Welsh football. If you want to stay up to date with all the content on the channel, subscribe down below and turn that notification bell on. We've got 2 long-term stories, including our Build a Nation with Bangor City. There's a few other new bits on the channel as well. Links to all the playlists in the eye above. But let's start by having a look at the Welsh Premier League. And we are immediately struck by 2 things on this page. Firstly, Colwyn Bay, 5 of the last 8 titles, bordering on domination. They just lost out this year to Airbus, who have made a bit of a renaissance. But also the competition reputation. Last time we were here, that was well down. It was in the 90s, I think. But even so, looking up now, it's up there in around 60th. It's made real progression. So I'm looking at that and thinking to our Bangor save, where we've got to just about the same point, probably slightly lower than this. That's come because of massive European performance. So either one side has gone on a massive run in one of the competitions, a few sides have been doing really well, or one side's been getting to the group stages consistently. That's the only way I can see that happening. So that's going to be interesting to find out. Another interesting thing is that the top scorer in the league only has 12 goals. It's a decent striker though. I tell you what, I know there's a few bits of mix and match here, but generally the standard of player looks a lot better this time around. And I'm a little bit more excited as a result. So that's something we'll keep our eyes peeled on as well. But I think the main headline here has to be the fact that it's been domination for Colwyn Bay largely. Our club Bangor City from the Build a Nation, they've got a couple of titles too. When you were last with me, Llanelli Town had just won it. Airbus got back to winning ways the year after. And since then, how many is that? 6 for Colwyn Bay, 2 for Bangor City and 2 for Airbus. So no titles for TNS. And they were the club who had nearly double the amount of money of everyone else at the start because of their reputation. And they've now gone 14 years without winning a title, sorry. So they're still there in third. They're not a threat of going down. I'm just seeing if any of the bigger boys are missing. Normally we'd have TNS at the top, Barry, Bala, Bangor. Yeah, it sort of works. So there's no massive teams down there. Connors Key, the champions in real life, of course. So not much of a change in terms of teams up here. None of those ones that didn't have money really breaking through, despite some of the stadiums that have been built. But TNS not winning it. Colwyn Bay becoming the superstars of the country. We'll go and take a look at those in a moment. But let's have a look at the transfers. When you were with me last time, I think the record transfer was about $250,000, maybe just over. And there were a lot of players coming in from non-league in England. So with the reputation growth, are there going to be some coming from League 2 perhaps? Are there going to be some coming from other countries? Let's go and have a look at this year. So in value order, still not a huge amount of massive signings. Again, mostly sort of League 2 and National League clubs. However, there is a bit of money being spent. And there's also players leaving the other way. So from TNS to Brisbane Roar, I presume that's an Australian. It is, but a very good player. But if we look at our save as an example, where all of our players are still worth 5 to 10 grand at Bangor City, TNS have sold someone for 350,000. That's unheard of and shows the reputation of the league. If we look at them as a club, they've only got a 1.5 star reputation. It's not like they're massive. So something must have changed here. They're of course still losing some big players to localish sides. So Bristol City, the Bristol clubs quite often pick up Welsh players. They're not far from the border. So they've got a right back there who's very good. But if we look at the standard of players, it's starting to look more promising. And the biggest domestic transfer coming in is from Bath to Colwyn Bay, who were the champions at the time. They've paid 300 grand for a Romanian under-21 international who's very good. That's a sort of League One level player. I'm really impressed with that. If we have a look at the other one Colwyn Bay signed, Jack Jones, he's a very good player too. You can see why they're the biggest side in the country and why they're spending the most money. And they were the side that had probably invested the most on the pitch last time as well, them and Barry. And you can see it's really worked out for them actually. So really interesting strategy there. Airbus UK were only signing free agents. They weren't great ones. So you have to say that Colwyn Bay had a dominant force. And Airbus even winning a title seems to be a pretty good achievement because the players they've brought in, albeit good, they're not quite the same standard to be fair. I'm just having a look. There's a player there on loan at Perth Glory from Airbus. The fact that they're looking to this window, that's really interesting. A lot of Australians floating about. Let's go back a few other years to see if there's any big record transfers. Looks about the same the year before. Again, it's all Colwyn Bay at the top. Look at the standard of that player. On £2.5 grand a week, a really good centre midfielder. They've signed really well. Most other clubs signing domestically only. So really, it's Colwyn Bay who are the big spenders. They're selling players abroad. They're signing big ones. Let's keep going back. So the year before that, there weren't really any big deals, other than TNS giving someone to Swansea Uni for 210 grand, who's a youngster. But otherwise, it's mostly Colwyn Bay again. Couple for Bangor, couple for other clubs. But most of the big transfers from England, it's a pattern every year. Neil Kendall, the keeper, to Colwyn Bay from Cambridge. And that year, I know it's not as high a value, but Barla signed a player from Woking who was a bit of a start, and he's very good as well. And now he's at Colwyn Bay. It's astonishing, really. Colwyn Bay are the dominant force in this country. They're signing players from other nations, and they're all becoming very good. They're sort of playing the role that our Bangor City side do. I'm just going back to see if there's any bigger transfers, which it doesn't look like there are. 250 grand again the first season. The first one after the last episode, that is. But otherwise, it's all been about Colwyn Bay. So let's go and start by having a look at them and seeing if we've got any surprises in Europe. I know they're not the champions at the moment, but they've been a dominant force in the country. So we'll hope there's some positive news here. They've got secure finances still. They've got a professional status and a 2-star reputation. That's the level our Bangor City side have just managed to reach after some good European runs. So let's hope they've got the same. Their key player is the big signing from last year. The manager's still not very good, although we have seen better ones in the nation. Their top goal scorer, Steve Thomas. Let's have a look. Very good player. So actually, and look at them, they're worth 275 grand. So they've really managed to drag up the value of these players as well. All of them worth big, big money. Makes a massive difference to the nation. So 5 or 6 real good stars there. Colwyn Bay looking fantastic form. Let's see how they've done in Europe though. This season, aha! Europa Conference group stages. Did they get through them? No. But they were involved in them. They got a point at home to Maritimo of Portugal. And they got a win at home to Örebro. Which nation are they from? A Swedish side. So they picked up 4 points in the Europa Conference group stages. And they made it there. That's a massive difference. The year before, there we go. Europa Conference group stages. Just on a quick side note, home to Liverpool in the first game. That's interesting that they're in that competition. But again, they picked up a point on the road, a point at home there. They picked up 2 points that time. So there really is progress from Colwyn Bay. The year before, Europa League group stages. Wow. Colwyn Bay are making footprints into European football. Europa League group stages there. Got a draw at home to Napoli. Jeez, Colwyn Bay, what are you doing? What a fantastic side. They are ever present. The year before didn't go great. The year before that, Europa Conference group stages. So, okay, they've not got out of the groups at any stage, but they're in there and they keep picking up odd points, so the coefficient must be improving. Year before that, no Europe. Year before that, Europa Conference group stages. Wales have got a side consistently in Europe. That's got to benefit the coefficient. We've seen that with Bangor City in our Builder Nation. I know they've not gone quite as far in one season, but overall they're continuing to push. And if the other sides are even making the playoffs some years, that will help the Welsh coefficient to a better level. What I don't understand is why some of the other sides can't compete in our series. They went out early the year before that, and got to the second qualifying round the year before that. So the first few years weren't great, but for the last 6 or 7, Colwyn Bay have been an ever-present, I think bar 1 year, in the European group stages. And 1 year, that was Europa League rather than Europa Conference. So that is a massive step forward from what we saw 10 years ago. And Colwyn Bay must be applauded. A quick look at their facilities, which we forgot to do. Still the original little stadium, but top corporate facilities, good training, good youth, average academy. So there is a little bit of investment there. But I think more of it now has gone on the pitch stuff, has gone on wages. We saw they had players on 3-4 grand a week. And look at that, 2 players on 3 grand, loads in the 2s. They've really invested and built that squad up. They've got a bigger wage bill than we've got a banger by a long way. Let's have a look at the champions though. Airbus have won 2 titles, bookending the 10 years, the first one and the last. Their key player, Charles Dawson, is a good player, just not a great personality. Their wage bill is significantly lower, but they're still a very good side. So if we go and have a look at their facilities, not great actually on their front. Their facilities are a lot worse. What are their finances like? Insecure. So the Champions League money is going to save them. If we have a look at the recent years, see, they got to the European second qualifiers there. But even just winning those first ties, if every team's doing that, it's adding to the coefficient. So the few years before that, they weren't in Europe. They seem to have had a bit of a lull. They got to the third qualifying round the last time before that. They got to the playoff against Olympiacos the year before. So actually, they're getting quite far in the qualifiers. And look, European group stage football. 31-32, Airbus were in the Europa Conference group stage. They lost to Rangers in the Europa League playoff, but actually got a draw in the home leg. And in the Europa Conference groups, okay, they lost all 3 games, and they had Mallorca and Eintracht Frankfurt. That's not a good group. But that's really impressive. I'm delighted to see that. The years before that, not a huge amount going on. But 2 sides that have had European football, one consistently and one that have made it to the group stages once. And let's have a look at TNS. Have they been able to do it? I suppose we're not looking at the last few years because they've been awful in them. But let's see what they've got overall. So, insecure finances, still professional. Ellington Marshall's the key player, who's quite good, we'll give him that. Facilities-wise, not great. So it looks like after they've spent that initial money, they've all run out of money a little bit. No European football this year or the year before. Second qualifier, second again, 3 years running there. 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6. They've just not got past it. Well, that's a bit of a disappointment. TNS have not got past the second qualifying round in Europe in any season. So TNS perhaps one of the disappointments there. I'd imagine I'd have not got one of the bigger wage bills. I thought they might have at this stage. So TNS gradually drifting away, not a force anymore. The other side that have won 2 titles are Bangor City. So they finished 5th this year, so they won't have Europe on this occasion. Their key player is Grant Gamble, who is absolutely excellent. And he's worth 160 grand. Again, they're all worth a bit more money, so the reputation must be higher. Let's have a look at their facilities. They're still professional. They're 1.5 star. They're moving to a new stadium. It's a smaller capacity, but it's their own, so fair enough there. And they've got decent facilities. So one of the things we are noticing, actually, is the fact that these clubs unanimously are moving up to sort of 1.5, 2-star reputation. And that's making a big difference. So Bangor City went out in the first round of Europe this year. Second one the year before. Have they got any big ones? Come on, give us a bit of luck. Third qualifier. We're getting better. Oh, playoff. Playoff the year before that. Keep going back. They're not going to do it, are they? Because they weren't great the years before. No, but they did reach the playoff once. So we've had some seasons where a lot of Welsh football teams have got far in the qualifying, and that's really helped out. Llandudno have made it this year. They finished second the 2 years before, so let's just have a quick look at them. Key player is a Spaniard, is a goalkeeper who's very good. They're professional, 1.5 star. I'm a bit worried about the finances of a lot of these. Because, look, they've got some big money players that they're just sort of selling off. And they're gradually going backwards. So I actually wonder, I mean, let me know if you want to see it. Looking at this, I'd argue if we go another 10 years in the future, Colwyn Bay will be the new TNS, and everyone else might be starting to go backwards. I'm not sure. The facilities gradually are. The players and the wages certainly are. And I feel like they might be starting to run out of that initial money that we gave them. So, Llandudno, second qualifiers this year and the year before. I can't see any time when they've got past the second qualifiers, and they weren't great for the 5 years before that. Let's skip to the team who, in the first 10 years, were the only ones to get into the European group stages. and that was Barrytown United. So again, look at it, insecure finances. I think they're all starting to run out of money, and I'm really interested the next 10 years. Will Colwyn Bay be able to carry the league, or will it start going backwards? Because it will be really interesting for us, for our Builder Nation, to see where that's going to go. If we go back to the profile, their key player is a Slovenian. He's a very good player, but he's only on loan, so we won't get too excited by him. Their squad's earning less money than for a long time. And if we go to the schedule, the last 10 years, let's have a look. So we had the 27-28 year where they got to the European group stages. Let's go back to the last 10 seasons. Have they actually been in Europe? Because they were the stars of the first 10 years in terms of European qualification. But the last 10, we've not really seen anything at all. 1/3 qualifying round performance and a second one there. But that was the last year of the first 10. So Barrytown United have really dropped off. TNS have really dropped off. And Colwyn Bay are making it happen at the top. So they're the ones we've got to watch out for. What I'm guessing from this lack of finance across the board, and we'll just check that these clubs are all still professional. They're not, look. Carmarthen back to semi-professional. Cardiff Met Uni is still amateur, of course. Connors Quay professional but insecure. Barla professional. Llanelli. Okay, so most of them are pro, but barely any of them have got good finances now. This is a real worry. What I think this must mean is that the average attendances haven't gone up that much. That's one of the things you guys have asked to see. So the average attendance, Bangor City over 1,000. And actually, across the top teams in the league, probably down to Barrytown United, they're pretty healthy. It's just after that, it's still what it was before. And that's where the problem comes. If it's not a Builder Nation and it's just certain clubs, there's always going to be people left behind. And when other teams do have that old good year, we're then going to have a bad year as a nation in Europe. That's the problem, isn't it? But Colwyn Bay have got a good one. TNS, Bangor City, pretty solid across the board. That's certainly an increase since the last episode. So that's something we have got to hold positively. So very quickly, we'll see if it's the same teams dominating the cup. And I can see it is, because Colwyn Bay are the holders. Bangor City, Barla got the odd one. So there's a little bit of rotation, but there's 3 for Colwyn Bay. There's a couple for Bangor. What we're going to do, though, is go down to the second tier very quickly. In the north, are there any big surprises? I don't think there really are. I mean, Real, who we gave the money to, still in the second tier. All of the clubs with the money are near the top of the league, and the ones without near the bottom. We can't really complain about it, can we? If we go and have a look at their average attendances, just in case there's any standouts, not really. And actually, bar the clubs with the money, there's not a massive increase to anything across the board. There's no real progress. The best goal scorer in the league, not a good player. So, actually, the second and third tier haven't improved that much. Although it is rated on a par with the second tier in Ireland, so perhaps it's improving slightly. We go and have a look at the south. Aberystwyth have won it again. They were a side who had done well at times, but now it looks like they've just become a yo-yo club. They've got 3 promotions and relegations. And actually, this league's a little bit weirder, because Cambrian and Clydach, if I remember rightly, were the side who got a massive stadium. They were. So I'll be interested to see what their average attendance is, because they have gone up and down a little bit. In terms of the others, though, one of the clubs we gave money in Port Talbot and in Athenlido, actually, are both a little bit further down. So there's been a little bit more progression in the south by some of the other teams. Whether that's loanies or deals with the likes of Cardiff or Swansea, I'm not sure. But let's have a look to see what the average attendances are. So Cambrian and Clydach is the biggest, but it's only 367. Certainly not a risk of a 15,000 stadium selling out. It's a shame, because if they could get to Europe and sell it out a couple of times, it'd be one hell of a club to take on. Be a lovely one to take over as it stands at the moment. In terms of the other clubs, though, most of them actually going back to semi-pro. The ones that have gone down, bit of a shame, isn't it? Because they worked so hard and prioritised right the first time. But that money's not been sustainable. It's not filtered into the leagues quick enough. And now Colwyn Bay are stealing all of it. So if you want to see it, we'll have a look. But we might see a regression in Wales the next 10 years. This is not what I expected to see today. Especially when we started with Colwyn Bay, I was really optimistic. But things have fallen away generally across the nation. And it seems to all be at the expense of one club. So we've looked at transfers, we've looked at the league, we've looked at Europe, we've looked at the average attendances, we've looked at how the clubs are getting on off the pitch. Let's go and have a look at the final 2 things that matter though. You wanted to look at Wales the nation, which we'll do in a moment, but let's start with the coefficient, which is one of our favourite little things in these sort of Build a Nation series or experiments. And rather interestingly, Wales have barely moved. So Colwyn Bay have got a very strong squad now. They're able to make it through all the qualifiers. But the league itself isn't progressing that much. I know it looks set to move up 3 or 4 places now. But it's not setting the world alight. they're about to lose a bad year. So I guess if Colwyn Bay get to Europe, get a few points this year, it could be good. But for Wales overall, it's pretty much a standstill. The growth has been stunted. They're stopping in their tracks. And that means the qualification places are still the same. If they can just get up to there where teams start getting in a second qualifier, you'd argue a few of them are strong enough to get into the group stages. But Colwyn Bay, a bit like us with Bangor in the Builder Nation, it's like they're going to have to carry the country with them and get them up there, and then some of the other teams can start progressing. If we have a look at the last 5 years, I mean, it's clear to see where it's happening. Colwyn Bay, the last 3 in particular, have been brilliant. Bangor City have been good, but that final year is about to fall off, so we're about to lose a big one from them. The same for Airbus, although they are in the qualifiers. And I think that might be the problem, that behind Colwyn Bay and possibly Bangor to an extent, the rest of the teams are still a bit erratic. Some are qualifying for Europe one year, not the next, and vice versa. And it's leaving us in this little bit of a state where 3 or 4 clubs can't really push on and do it. Colwyn and Bangor are the sides we've got to rely on. Bangor haven't made it this year. So Colwyn Bay are carrying the torch for the nation, and we'll wait and see what happens. If we go back to the 10-year one for revenue, hopefully there'll be some better news on that front, because Colwyn Bay have been good for the most part. And you can see there, they're right up in the top 170. But all of the others, because Bangor were poor the first 5 years, TNS have been poor the last couple, and then there's somewhere like Barla, in, out, out, in. Airbus UK, the first 5 years brilliant, 4 years without a point, and now they're going to be back in again. Barrytown United, the first 4 years good, haven't made it in for 6 years since. So it's a real frustration that no one's having a sustained run at it outside of Colwyn Bay. Hopefully Bangor City can be that side, but is this year going to end up costing them? You just don't know. But Colwyn Bay's certainly a positive. We'll take that from it. Now let's go and have a look at how Wales the nation have been getting on. Very quickly, sorry, because I forgot, the Welsh Premier League has just moved up in reputation as a competition. It's ahead of League 2 now. I think the problem here is some of the Minnow Nations tournaments seem to have moved up. So actually the Irish Premiership in Northern Ireland has moved up more than it has in our Builder Nation with Bangor City. Because the Northern Irish clubs have had a good run or two. The same for the Georgian League. And that might be hindering them. I mean, look at Moldova. They're absolutely flying. So that's really interesting, actually. But let's have a look at the nation. Ranked 32nd in the world. Not much change there. The key players all still playing for big clubs. So Phelan at Bayern Munich is a very good right winger. Elite level. Ryan Hall at number 10 at West Ham is okay. Robbie Luck at Ajax is an unbelievable 35-year-old. Still going at the old age. And actually, a lot of them are getting to an old age. Zenit have got a 34-year-old winger. The Lazio midfielder is 31. And the Leeds right back is 29. So there are a few aging star players there. So that just sort of backs up what's happening at club level. This nation could really start to turn and go the other way. The money seems to have run out in the league. And if Colwyn Bay can't get it in and distribute it, I'd be really worried for what's going to happen next. If we have a quick look at the under-21s, I just want to see what sort of level they're playing at. Well, I say that. Let's go back to last year. They won the under-21 Euros. That's a positive sign. Let's have a look at the 2 goal scorers. So Torrance is a 20-year-old at Villa, who's unbelievable in truth. And if we have a look at the other one who was there, Jordan Quinn, he's a very good young striker at Ipswich. So actually, Wales have got a very good lot of youngsters coming through. Aren't any of them playing in the Welsh League? Are any of the squad players playing in there? So senior squad, as we probably expected, not so much. What about the 21s? Are there any players from the Welsh Premier League? None. What about the under-20s? Doesn't look like it. The 19s maybe? Is there anyone? I don't think there's one. Bangor City, here we go. Tim Nash, under-19s for Wales. Decent young player. But it still seems like they're being snatched from the nation a bit too early. There's one young goalkeeper from Barrytown United who's not very good. But otherwise, they're being stole young from the nation. And actually, I'd say it's probably reached the tip of an iceberg where it might just start to go down now. So I'm a little bit concerned for what the next 10 years would bring. I am happy to go and have a look at it if you want to. So please let me know down in the comments if you'd like to see one more episode from this series. Unfortunately, beyond that, I think it would completely destroy my PC. But we will go 10 more years if you want, just to see whether Colwyn Bay can carry them or whether it's going to just start to dip over the hill and go down again. Otherwise, good to see that most are staying professional. The finance is definitely a problem. That initial money, that little boost we gave them, it's all run out. And for those where the reputation hasn't increased or they've been relegated or they've blown it all on facilities at the start, They're starting to suffer now. So let me know what you thought of that down in the comments. If you did enjoy the second part of this experiment, please do put a thumbs up on the video. I have got a couple of others planned similar. We'll sort of do the same thing but with different attributes changed. So rather than finances next time, we'll do one with reputation changed and just see which stat is the most influential in FM success and see if we can pinpoint it, I guess. If you want to stay up to date though and follow these experiments, please do subscribe down below and turn that notification bell on. There's also daily FM21 content from 2 long-term stories, as well as live streams here, which you can find the series in the eye above, and a Twitch channel down in the description below. A big thank you for watching, a big thank you for your support as always. Let me know in the comments if you want to see a final episode. And I'll see you next time for more daily FM21 content. I'll see you there.